The kids and teens of today have a drastically different way of life than today's adults did while growing up. Older folks always say things like,
"Back in my day, we didn't have cell phone, laptops, and big screen TVs."
Is it necessarily a good or bad thing that technology has evolved into what it is? How does technology affect the future leaders of our country? Research shows that technology impacts the different generations in both positive and negative ways because of its continual advances in social trends. These generations include the baby boomers, born 1946 to 1964, Generation X, born 1965 to 1981, Generation Y, also known as the millennials, born 1982 to 2000, and Generation Z, also known as the boomlets, born post-2000. Let's begin by describing the characteristics of each generation. What sets them apart from each other? There are currently 77.3 million baby boomers in America. Nicknames include the Me generation or the Rock and Roll generation. Technology of the baby boomer generation includes the first television, the typewriter, the first telephone, and the transistor radio. The average age for a baby boomer to receive a cell phone for the first time is 50 years old. They grew up in a time of dramatic social change and at the time of Woodstock, Vietnam War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. People were involved with social activism, peace movements, protests, civil rights movements, the feminist cause, gay rights, and the right to privacy. Boomers are the wealthiest, most active, and most acquisitive. Baby boomers listen to music using the radio or a record player. Movies like Cinderella or Godzilla were viewed in theaters.
Generation X has 51 million people living in America, and they were also known as the MTV generation or the boomerang generation. They were raised in an era of technological and social change, and they were the first to use personal computers, cable TV, the internet, and video games. The average age of receiving their first cell phone is 30 years old. Xers grew up in a time of broken homes, and they had the highest divorce rate, which created many single working parents, and kids were often left alone. Many grew up to be cynical and independent. They were the first to grow up watching televised warfare footage. They grew up with musical heroes such as Prince, Whitney Houston, Cyndi Lauper, and Journey. Popular TV shows were The Cosby Show, Saturday Night Live, and Seinfeld. Hit movies of the age were E.T., Ghostbusters, and the John Hughes movies like The Breakfast Club. This was the generation that founded Google and Amazon. Generation Xers are now the controlling members of our society.
Generation Y is 88,500,000 strong. They are also known as the millennials or the net generation. Generation Yers are very optimistic and grew up on the belief that anything is possible and that their country's best days are ahead of them. The average age of receiving their first cell phone is 15 years old. This is the generation that grew up on technology and social media. They are defined by the internet and are extremely tech-savvy. 90% of teens in this generation use social media, and 75% of them have a Facebook page. Social media has become a platform for teens to share and voice their opinions. However, it's also a platform for issues like cyberbullying, and 44% of teens have become addicted. Musical heroes include the Backstreet Boys, the Spice Girls, and Michael Jackson. Music was listened to using the first MP3 player. Popular TV shows included Friends, Nickelodeon cartoons, and Will and Grace. Defining movies included the Titanic, Mean Girls, and the Walt Disney movies. Generation Y spends an estimated $20 billion in online purchases each year, and 90% of them have a personal computer. There are 2 billion Generation Zers around the globe. They are also known as the boomlets or the I generation. Signature products include or will include Google Glasses, nano computing, 3D printing, and driverless cars. The average age of receiving a cell phone for the first time is 9 years old. Defining characteristics is how globally aware they are, their need for speed, and their addiction to entertainment. Generation Z can be described as techaholics. They are entirely dependent on it and have a limited grasp of alternatives. Generation Z faces the problem of having slim job prospects after graduation. They are the first generation to live in a world that promises them less than what their parents had. Education trends include interactive textbooks, educational games, and collaborative projects that use technology. There is an increased popularity for homeschooling, using the web as a major tool. Generation Z is predicted to be much more organized and strategic than Generation Y. Generation Z spends 4.4 hours of leisure time in front of a screen. 90% of all media interactions take place on a screen, such as a smartphone, tablet, laptop, or TV. Popular music includes music by Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, Sam Smith, and dubstep style, and is usually accessed online or using smartphones. Popular TV shows include The Walking Dead and Pretty Little Liars. Millennials prefer to stream TV shows using programs such as Netflix or Hulu, rather than watching live. Popular movies like American Sniper and Unbroken have multiple ways of viewing as well. The negative effects of technology are evident in something as simple as wishing a happy birthday. Older generations feel it is more personal to send a traditional greeting card to say happy birthday, or call that person directly. The younger generations feel it is more efficient to send a text or post a message on their social media. These may be faster, but it is much less personal to do so. The positive effects can be shown by medical research. For example, polio is a famous disease that had a serious outbreak in the United States in 1952. Throughout the following years, vaccines were created by means of technology, and now today, the terrible disease of polio no longer exists in America.